We welcome back to the News Philanthropy Summit, dealing with a few technical difficulties as we get everything started, but thank you for your patience. We're really thrilled to have you with us this morning for our session with Free Press Unlimited and the Dutch Postcode Lottery. We're going to get started in just a minute, but wanted to welcome everyone and remind everyone of our code of conduct, that we ask that everyone is treated with respect. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to them. We're thrilled to have an amazing panel with us today. We have Leon Willems and Lidewij van Vliet from the NGO Free Press Unlimited in the Netherlands, and Judith Lingeman, who is with the Postcode Lottery group, also in the Netherlands. They are going to discuss how they've worked together and how the Postcode Lottery group has funded some experimental projects with which are really terrific, and we're going to learn more. And so I will let the panelists introduce themselves in a moment, but I think we're going to start with a couple quick videos to orient everyone to both organizations, because I know they were both new to me as we started going through this process and learning about the panel. So I'll ask Joe to start the videos, and then we'll jump into the conversation. So thank you everyone for bearing with us, and we'll jump right into it in a minute.
Okay, I'm going to do both of them back to back. We're going to start with the Postcode Lottery Group video. Is that okay? Okay, let's do it. Give me 1 second. Here we go. We are going to share. Everybody see that? Here we go.
Meet Nadia Murad. Nadia is a survivor of an ISIS-led genocidal campaign that ravaged the Yazidi community in Iraq. A winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, Nadia works to rebuild and restore communities in crisis and advocate for projects that promote education, healthcare, and women's empowerment. Nadia's initiative is just one out of thousands of organizations supported by the Postcode Lottery Group. Founded over 30 years ago and operating in 5 European countries, the lottery is driven by its mission to make the world a better place by fostering a strong, active civil society. The innovative format connects lottery tickets to postal codes, meaning streets, neighborhoods, and communities have the chance to not only win together, but also raise vital funding for charity together.
Together with the players in People's Postcode Lottery, we are making a difference.
Thanks to the participation of over 13 million players, this year the Postcode Lottery raised 850 million euros from ticket sales for charity and good causes. And over the last 3 decades, they have donated more than 12.5 billion euros. The Postcode Lottery is the 3rd largest charitable private donor in the world.
I hope that we never get numb to these numbers, because these are incredible numbers that you pump out here every single year.
These funds make it possible for the Postcode Lottery to provide long-term, unrestricted financial support based on trust to thousands of grassroots community initiatives, as well as hundreds of large international organizations with sustainable development goals that include human rights, climate change, global health, animal protection, and poverty alleviation.
I can't explain to you what a magical thing it is to be able to fund all of these incredible charities.
Like a collaboration with the Clinton Health Access Initiative and the Dutch AIDS Fund to increase HIV testing and access to life-saving medication.
The evidence that we have seen by the investment of the AIDS Fund indicates that really this country will be AIDS-free.
To ensuring grassroots organizations can provide food or clothing to families in need.
What makes the People's Postcode Lottery so special is the amazing support they give local charities just like us.
With organizations like the Cruyff Foundation and the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust, the Postcode Lottery supports those living with disabilities to live life to the fullest and believe in a bright future.
The Cancer Trust and the Foundation would not be the organisations they are today without your support.
When something as simple as a neighborhood lottery can transform the lives of people living with disabilities, support local initiatives, help fight climate change, or support a community to rebuild, the world has a powerful answer to the question, how can we make a lasting difference together?
All righty, we'll do the second video now.
You deserve to know. To hear all sides of a story. To receive reliable information.
The authorities have started withdrawing the accreditation of journalists. This is press time!
Bringing the news is becoming more dangerous every day.
The crackdown on journalists comes a day after EU foreigners.
Journalists are harassed, intimidated,
I'm a journalist.
attacked, and even murdered.
He was going to collect documents for his forthcoming marriage, but Jamal Khashoggi never came out.
11 killed so far this year just for doing their jobs.
Free Press Unlimited stands up for journalists all over the world because you deserve to know.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe, for showing the videos, and thank you to everyone for sharing those. And so those were tremendously powerful, I think, and a really great overview of the work of both of your organizations, and so excited to dig in a bit more. And so, Judith, I want to start with you. Can you tell us a bit about the Dutch Postcode Lottery? This was a new organization for me, and I'm curious how this work in the Netherlands and the work supporting journalism fits into your broader strategy for your work.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to. And thank you so much for having me this morning for you, this afternoon for us. And actually, I hadn't seen the video of Free Press Unlimited, but it's so striking. And I think images, they say it all. And hopefully it was a long clip with a lot of images about our operation. But basically, it comes down that we are a fundraiser in Europe, in 5 European countries. And we initiated a lottery model based on postcode. So people play with lottery tickets based on where they live. So therefore we can also have prizes shared among neighbors. So it's a community lottery, it's a neighborhood lottery. And our founders over 30 years ago, they had a very strong vision that they believe in a strong civil society. And as we all know, it needs funding. All those great grassroots initiatives and things that are important to have a stable and a good democracy and equality in life, that needs funding too. So that's when they started, it was their vision to make sure that we raise as much money as we can and support also as many organizations as we can. And it's really fantastic that we've already been partnering with Free Press Unlimited for over 25 years. And that is also one of the elements that we truly believe that as long as we grow as a fundraiser, we become partners of many organizations working in a very broad field of people, planet, nature, climate, education, and human rights are very important. And therefore, the media freedom of press has been always one of the key areas that we'd like to support.
That's amazing, and it's really impressive, a really broad work, and really interested in the unrestricted approach, which we'll get to in a few minutes. And Leon and Lidewij wanted to learn more also about Free Press Unlimited, and you're working on press freedom projects globally, and so want to hear about that, but also in particular, more experimental projects, which is part of the focus of today's conversation, like the Safer World for Truth project, which focuses, I believe, on raising awareness and helping fight the murder of journalists, which is obviously hugely important.
Yeah, that's one of the most drastic consequences of the harassment that journalism face. So Free Press Unlimited is a non-governmental organization. We're created by journalists in the Netherlands. We currently work in over 50 countries worldwide. We work on 3 elements. One is the safety of journalists. The other one is the ability of journalists to do their work independently, which is very much under threat also globally. And the third layer is the continued existence of media in the context of shrinking space. Because around the world, we're seeing that civil society is actually under threat. Now, how do we do that? To give you an example, we have a Reporters Respond Fund that supports over 1,000 journalists a year, bringing them out of harm's way, bringing protective gear. We distributed a lot of protective gear to journalists in Ukraine who are doing frontline reporting this year, but there's new crises every year, so roughly 1,000 people every year. And the interesting aspect of that is that we are able to attract funding from institutional donors, government donors, to save people. But one of the things that we want to really focus on is trying to address the root causes of where do these problems come from. And this is where our relationship and our partnership with the Postcode Lottery is super important. Because if you want to do innovative, experimental things, this is something that is very risky for government donors. They don't really fund experimentation. They want predictable results, etc. So this is where our liaison with the Postcode Lottery comes in. And one example is the Save a World for the Truth project. It's very important to understand that of all the journalist murders that happen every year, roughly between 50 to 100 every year, 90% of these cases, more or less, are never leading to any prosecution of the killers. And so this has led to an enormous impunity. And not only is it a shame that these people are killed, which is a violation of their human right, but it's also the stories that these people were working on are withdrawn from the public. So every journalist that's murdered is one story about something doing wrong somewhere. And this is why we think independent journalism comes in and it's so important. So we did this experimental project. A lot of people believe that impunity is something that is just a given and it's very difficult to prosecute these things. And we said, why don't we test if it's actually true? Can we prosecute? Can we find evidence? Can we find reasons why people are killed? Can we find and interview witnesses that have never been followed? And we developed it as a kind of a dream project and said to the Postcode Lottery, we think it's worthwhile to try and test if the assumption that impunity is something that cannot be challenged is true. And so we investigated a number of cases. We did a tribunal on issues of grave impunity in Syria, in Sri Lanka, in Mexico. And the results that we have are really breathtakingly interesting. We managed to open up a public lawsuit in Pakistan into a killing that happened 10 years ago. We managed to get, in the Philippines, there was someone running for governor in the recent elections who was actually implicitly involved in the killing of a journalist in the Philippines. There was an arrest warrant. He was never apprehended. And because of our new investigation, this person has now been barred and arrested. So it's possible to achieve results, but it would never have been possible without the experimental support and the trust of the Postcode Lottery to give us the money to build a team to investigate this. So crucially important, experimentation, trying stuff, trying to get things done that are untested. So we need innovation across the board in civil society. That is why our relationship with the Postcode Lottery is so important.
That's obviously such important work, and the results are striking. And I'd be curious to hear more about those challenges of going to potential funders when you're looking to pitch a more experimental project. Obviously, you've had a longer term relationship with the Postcode Lottery, and they know you and were receptive to the pitch, but maybe what were some of the conversations like, and what are the challenges as you're going to potential funders with those more experimental projects, I suppose?
Look, basically, everybody who gives you money wants to make sure that you're not abusing it, that there's some reward, that there's some, payback. And so, what we see, especially with the government donors, is they want predictable results. Predictable results and innovation or experimentation don't gel together. So you have to build a long-term relationship with existing donors who like risk-taking. And risk-taking and donating money are things that are problematic. That is why I think the system of the postcode lottery in itself is innovative, because it kind of provides that. Other than that, I would say that we are an organization where 80 people work across the world. We're trying to support organizations that are doing this work in the global south, where the challenges are much harder even. And so having the free mind, the free time, and the staff capacity and resources to think about our experimentation and resources is in so much high demand. Everybody here is working on a day-to-day level, very hard on making true what we promise and so on. So the space to engage in something new, that is a challenge for most NGOs that I know. And so this is, you have to, when you want to create innovation, you have to put up money up front before you know whether you have results. And that is also, from a managerial perspective in our organization, it's always a challenge.
Can I add to this?
Sure.
I was actually literally just talking to one of our major private donors, which fortunately we have received a few more these last years because we've been found more. And this older man, he used to be an entrepreneur. And he literally said to me, I don't want to know what you're going to do with my money, because I know that your organization is trustworthy and you guys are doing great things. And I want you guys to make mistakes. And I said, well, what is it that what do you mean by saying something like this? He said, well, that's just the way it works. If you want to be innovative, you have to make mistakes at one point, and I trust you. And to me, this as well, thinking, I actually told him about this panel discussion that we would have and the relationship that we have with the Postcode Lottery. And he was one of a supporter of the Postcode Lottery, just to say that as well. He was buying tickets as well. But he was very happy for us as well that this is a relationship that we have, and this is a possibility. And we're hoping that next to the Postcode Lottery and this particular major donors, that there are going to be more private investors that actually see the necessity of our freedom as an organization to actually really respond to either a crisis or a different situation, and that we don't have a financial burden. If, for example, our Media Lifeline Ukraine, within a week it was planned, we had the partners, etc. But if we did not know how it would work, and we did not know all the investment that we were doing just to make the reliable information in Ukraine to keep that flowing, it could have even, well, I'm not going to say bankrupt us, but it was a really big investment, and not knowing if we would, find the funds for it. So we have to be able to do that, to respond within all the amazing colleagues we have with the amazing experience and their brain power, amazing brain power.
Thank you. Yeah, that is so valuable and heartening to hear that other donors are coming around to this approach. And really, this is at the heart of how the Postcode Lottery approaches its giving, that it's trust-based, it's unrestricted funding, and it enables that experimentation. And so I'm curious to hear more about the thinking behind that approach to giving, and how that then influences your relationship with grantees like Free Press Unlimited.
Yeah, I can certainly elaborate on that. I think the most simple answer is that we are very good in operating a lottery, and that we can sell tickets and we keep our players close to us. They subscribe, so people become members. And nowadays we have over 13 million households. So this new donor, it's really great that he's also a player in the Dutch lottery, but we have lotteries in Sweden and Norway and Germany and in the UK as well. So all those households, they know. And we have, besides that we raise funds, we inform our audience also, and also the broader audience, not only our players, about all the work that's being done. But actually our founders in 1989, they had a very strong vision that they thought, okay, let's make the model. We are a fundraiser, we have a mechanism, and it turned out to become a very big success. They could not have foreseen that over 33 years ago that it would be so big, and that we grew into one of the largest private donors in the world now. But I've been with the lottery for 20 years, so I don't know any other model than that we do the thing that we do best. We operate the lottery, we have a lot of fun, we make people have their dreams come true. And at the same time, of course, we have very skilled charity departments in every lottery, where we have an open place that organizations can apply for funding throughout every year. And luckily, thanks to the growth for 30 years, we have been able to welcome organizations. And it has been unrestricted, and we enter into long-term. Of course, there's we have some criteria, so you need to pass the test before you become one of our partners. But if you do, then we really enter in something long-term. So usually it's 5 years contract, so that you know in advance, as long as the lottery keeps on selling the tickets, that you can really count on a certain amount of annual contribution. And yeah, that enables organizations to grow. And we have seen that the money can also be spent really on your core funding or extra fundraising, whatever you think it's best. So the flexibility, sometimes partners use it as a catalyst. If you have already a starting amount of money for a larger project, you can also go and ask around for other funders to join in, because it's easier when you already have something on the table. And also we've seen throughout the whole COVID period, more recent, so we're talking about 30 years of experience, but the past years, we have seen that it has been so important also for smaller partners that we also support, and community grants, that it is really up to the partner to use the money where it is used best. So if something isn't working or it is blocked to whatever reason, organizations are able to be flexible and direct the funds in a different way. And indeed, mistakes can be made, and we've seen it in the past with partners, but not to a high extent. And actually, being for so many years already a partner, and being so well informed about what's happening with every of the partners, and I can mention a lot of names, but we have over 400 long-term partners like Free Press Unlimited, and more in the field of media freedom. And I can name some others like Thomas Reuters, and we have the Amnesties and the Human Rights Watch, even Bellingcat. So we have a lot of other organizations that work within these fields. And it's actually great fun, because we've been learning along the way, and indeed we inspire the partners to come up with new ideas, also to collaborate with others. So that has of course, I've been also fed with some information by the charity team here. So we did a lot of great projects also with other partners. You worked Free Press Unlimited with Defense for Children and with Oxfam, and we always encourage to see whether you can team up. And that's on top of, it's an annual unrestricted contribution, but we also support with project funding. But still within the projects, there's a lot of flexibility to go about, and what's best for having the most impact and the most results.
That's spectacular. And it's so interesting to hear that really it's a 5-year commitment, basically. And so I can't imagine that you're writing a check today and then you say to a grantee, okay, we'll see you in 2028. Can't wait to hear what's going on. And so what is the expectation of the grantee then? Are they reporting back to you? What are those conversations like about?
Well, every partner, when you become a partner, we've already have checked to a certain extent. We have our criteria. We want also some other sources of funding, not to become too depending on just one source. So that's really good. We also try to convince other funders to follow our example, wherever we can or what stage we are, events we are. We share our funding philosophy, as it's called. But we are well informed throughout. Actually, today I received in the email the new strategic plan of Free Press Unlimited, for example. So all that kind of information is there for us to get informed. And we have some official annual forms that we want to know how things are going. But yeah, after 25 years, and we have a really nice past, I could say so, that we have experienced all kind of moments that we really have an open discussion or open conversation. How are you doing? What do you need? What do you need from us? So yeah, I think it increases the openness. So we are by annual reporting, etc. And every 5 years we do have a very strict inquiry. It's an evaluation process, and it's always quite exciting, of course. But we always do that in the year before the last donation, so it's no surprise. So you already have, and most of the partners, they pass the test again, and then they can be relieved, get another amount, and then enter into the new 5 years. So yeah. I think we have, as said, every lottery in every country, we have charity teams of about 15 or 20 people. That is relatively a small group when you look at our whole operation with 1,500 in total. But those colleagues, they know exactly, and they have built up very close relationships with all the partners. So we feel very comfortable that we know what's happening, and we always find ways to communicate also about the projects towards that large audience that we are working with, our loyal players and more.
Terrific. And Leon and Lidewij, I'd be curious what that looks like from your perspective. I mean, whether it's sending the annual report, for example, or a strategic report, or other ways that you're keeping.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that this may, when you hear us talking, you may think, oh, they get money for 5 years and then bye-bye, and then in 5 years we see each other again. But that is not how it works. Actually, we personally believe because we have such a trusted relationship, we as an organization believe in transparency and openness and providing information to the public about everything that we do. And I do encourage you, for example, it's another experiment that we did. We developed a website on our results and our knowledge, which is kq.freepressunlimited.org, and it's open. Everybody can go there. And we share their information about the findings and the results of our work. But in our relationship with the Postcode Lottery, it's also true that because we have that trust relation, it becomes absolutely vital that we have a frank relationship with each other, where when something is going wrong, we immediately go to them and say, look, we know that we intended to do this, but this and this happened. And, we think about changing the way we go about it. We did an experiment. This part failed, but this is working well. So can we shift money maybe within the framework? And then, so you develop a very open and very continuous relationship on the kinds of projects that have a high value, that have high visibility. So we actually have multiple relations with people from the Postcode Lottery at many levels, at the directors level, at the program level. The Postcode Lottery also entertains informational programming in Dutch public broadcasting, and we take part in some of these stuff. So whenever we have public events, we make sure that we share it so that people, the trust relationship and the incredible unrestrictedness of it actually prompts us to be more accountable, to be more sharing, more. That is how it works for us. So I'm not sure if that helps framing the picture, but that is how we see this relationship.
Yeah, that helps a lot. I think there's a tendency among fundraisers and news organizations to want to present everything to a funder that it's a straight line going up and everything's going well and we're growing audience and growing revenue and it's perfect, because there's a fear that you're not going to get the next round of funding. So it seems like having that open dialogue and having that ability to really converse about what didn't work and what worked and what lessons were learned is really powerful and helps everyone grow and learn to make the philanthropy more effective, but also then to make the work as effective as well.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that one of the things we are facing as a organization that, as I said, works in 50 countries on more than 100 projects with partners around the world, for us, it's also very important to see that there's a political issue with the independence of journalists around the world. And so 5 years ago, we told the Postcode Lottery, we really think we need to do more on policy and trying to influence the government levels of states. And that is all unfundable or underfunded work. And we're very happy that we did that, because we now see that the urgency of the crisis of journalism has raised to the Democracy Summit level, that the European Union has 4 commissioners that are really invested in trying to save independent journalism. So we feel that we're making an impact, and we try to do that in an open, collaborative way with many other organizations, including American organizations like CPJ and others who are working from the American continent, with whom we build relationships. So I think that the collaborative aspect in civil society is so important. That helps too.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's fascinating. And I have plenty of questions. But if anyone else has questions or things you want to make sure we cover, please drop them in the chat. And that relationship and collaborative perspective is so interesting. I imagine that is also from the Postcode Lottery side as well. You spoke about Judith wanting to engage additional funders and use this as an opportunity to help organizations continue to raise money. And so how do you think about leveraging the unrestricted support as a way to hopefully help organizations grow beyond just your initial grant?
Yeah, what we do is to tell it as many people as we can. And I shared with you our funding philosophy. Maybe you can share it in the chat for the people who are listening. But that's something we are such a true believers. But there is another side. For 25 years, we partner already with Free Press Unlimited. But if we do welcome new partners, it's sometimes really, they feel really insecure getting so much freedom. So it goes 2 ways. Like, but don't you want to have like a certain location or country or specific this or that? And we keep on saying, no, it's really up to you. You're the specialist. It's you have your goals. You want to reach a better world, whatever area it is. So that is also something that our new partners need to adjust a little bit. Like, oh, is it really, how should we go about it? Because they're not used to it. And wherever we can, we go to certain gatherings. Also in the US, we partner with the Clinton Global Initiative. We sometimes went to the Paris Peace Forum, wherever we meet others like the Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, the Ford Foundation. We are in good conversations with those big funders as well. And we do see a little bit of a shift. And I can only stress that it's really the way to go, because we don't have time to waste. There's so much at stake when it comes to human rights, when freedom of press, everything, climate, everything we're facing, challenges around the world. It is easier to limit all the bureaucratic handling to a certain extent, obviously. We do keep track, but if we can limit it and there's more freedom to go, then there's much more time and energy to really focus on what matters.
Absolutely. And we have a question, and from an attendee, what lessons might you have for US media? Most of our attendees are here in the US, who might want to replicate some of the successes you've had in the Netherlands and across Europe.
It's a question for me?
I think question for everyone.
Oh, okay, well, I will then first answer. We would love to go across the pond in that sense. We are now European based, but in the whole lottery landscape, it's quite complicated because rules and regulations are pretty difficult, and state lotteries have a lot of strong positions when it comes to lottery permits, but we are very much willing, and we're different, and we have a safe model. It's a subscription-based model, so that's also something that I work on day-to-day basis to see whether we can expand, because indeed we mostly support organizations that are based themselves either in Holland or in Germany or in Great Britain. We have some exemptions to that rule when it comes to larger organizations also based in the US. But we would love to expand our fundraising model and see whether we can support many more initiatives and civil society actors, also especially in the field of human rights and freedom of press and media.
Yeah, I would support that statement very much, because I know that a lot of my colleagues in the American side are suffering from some of the same issues related to unrestricted funding, related to long-term trust. And of course, you know, without going into saying what I think about the United States media, I think that one of the big problems that we have around the world is the current stage of disinformation, distrust in journalism, hate speech on the internet, and so on. And I think that these are global trends. And the only way to tackle global trends is to have more cooperation. And we have a need for an active civil society engagement. My personal view is that the public, the general public, the audiences, are not demanding enough accountability from the media sector, media, you know, but especially also the social media. Let's say, yeah, in our common day-to-day language, we sometimes call them pundits, but you know, people are being harmed by all this divisional information, and we need a more collective approach on protecting the quality of our information ecosystem, so that we stay in the same track, so to speak, on the largely broader track. Of course, we believe very much in the importance of journalism is also to give voice to people who disagree. But the current polarizing trend, individuals blaming, you know, other people, that is something we have to rethink, and that rethink is important in America. It's important in the Netherlands. There's a lot of dissent in the Netherlands on many issues as well. But this disinformation is actually killing people in many other parts of the world. In Myanmar, where social media have been used to target the Rohingya population. It's being used in blasphemy cases in other parts of the world. It's being used to attack journalists. And so, yeah, my plea would be, can we rethink ethics in the information ecosystem? Because I think it's really needed. We don't have all the answers, but we do need civil society and the public to demand more accountability from those who share information. It's not just about more journalists. It's not just about, you know, that helps, but we also need to think about the public function of journalism. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely, it does. And Judith, I sort of have this question to you, that the Postcode Lottery funds all sorts of things. Journalism and press freedom is just one section of that. And one of the challenges I know many of our colleagues in the United States are having is that there are a small number of foundations and individuals who fund journalism, but making that case, like Leon was just describing, that journalism and the freedom of the press is valuable for all sorts of things for society in general. But if you care about the environment, if you care about health issues and things like that. And so I wonder if you have any advice or suggestions for our fundraising colleagues here who are going to other funders to share about why you think journalism is important and fits into this broader portfolio, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I have a personal opinion. We also have a postcode lottery opinion, but I think actually also what Leon says, it's so important to, as a human right, to be well informed. And it's not only freedom of press, and there's very hard situations around the globe, but also in our own relatively okay countries. It's important to also have a pluriform press, and you see that things are shrinking down. People are in their bubble. They don't get all the information that would be really good to have to make up your own opinion. But two sides of this question about the funding. Looking for funding, you could at least show our funding philosophy, and I'm always happy I can be redirected to me. Can I tell a little bit about my experience? If there are funders that are interested in how we do that, it could be inspirational, I'm always happy to do so. And the importance of free press and free media, it's almost so, for me, it's so logical that it's so hard to explain that. In our portfolio, with a strong civil society, a democracy, a world that we would like to live in, where people have their equal rights, that they're well informed, that they can go to school and make their decisions and have the right to demonstrate, something currently very hot topic in the Netherlands. I think, it's for me, it's a no-brainer, but it's actually quite a hard question if you have to convince people why it would be interesting to have like a broad, free, pluriform media landscape. Sorry.
No need to apologize. And I think, making it seem like it's a cause worth funding along all those other ones is important as well. And Leon, I saw you unmuted.
And funny enough, if I look, it's maybe our own colleagues. We work with the Gen Z. We need young people to work for us, but we also need young people to at some point sign up to play our lotteries. And we do see that the whole purpose, and I mentioned some others have Free Press Unlimited or indeed Bellingcat or the ICIG. It's the people that we work with and we support, they're really, it makes them tick. They think it's worthwhile. And maybe that's also a part of society that wants to play and wants to support charities, because that's a different challenge we see, that a lot of NGOs are now also bashed and criticized tremendously. And we as a big donor also, we get also on all social media, and people hate us tremendously because we are supporting NGOs. It's and they say non-elected organizations. So, well, we have to deal with all kinds of things, but I think information, and that's a role for the media, very important. And we can also help a little bit with our, as Leon said, we have television shows, we have all kinds of ways to inform our people. And in the end, storytelling will help people see what could be important for everyone. Yeah.
I'm slightly distracted because we have a power issue here, but I hope we solved it. I think so. Anyhow, what I would add is that I know that a lot of people criticize journalists, and I know that people are sometimes, how do you say that, disappointed in the role of the press. And there's a lot that the press themselves can do better. That is true, and we don't hesitate to also be critical of ourselves and of journalism in itself. But just imagine what would be the situation in the United States today if there weren't broadcast media, if there weren't newspapers. How would you be informed about what is going on? And so the critical aspect, even if people on social media are saying, well, I get all my information from social media, so much information that is on the social media is coming initially from journalists who say, hey, what's going on? I'll give you an example. In the Netherlands, we have a crisis of people who got subsidies from the government and who were chased for not living up to the expectations of the government. And it was, the whole thing was uncovered by journalists. And this then became an enormous parliamentary issue which led to government being more accountable on, that they created some wrongdoing. Just imagine that there hadn't been any journalists. We're talking about 40,000 families in the Netherlands who've been put aside by government actions. But there's also issues we found in our Safer World project, that many of the journalists who are being killed because they're investigating, for example, criminal networks who are involved in drug trading, who are involved in exploiting people in sex abuse issues in Indonesia and Malaysia. It is journalists who sometimes are needed to uncover things in order for society to then address these things, and that is the critical function of a critical press. And I think we have to acknowledge that social function is so important.
Mm-hmm. That makes complete sense. And I'm glad you brought it back to Safer World for the Truth. You mentioned that at the beginning, that was really an experimental project. And it seems from how you've described it that it's had some initial success. And now that you've launched that initial experiment, I'm curious how you then take it and then communicate that back to additional donors, to the public, to think about how you continue to say, okay, this isn't an experiment anymore, this is an established project, and continue to grow it.
Well, there's two ways in which we try to grow out of experimentation into a more broad stream. So one of the things that I would like to highlight is that when we started with our Reporters Respond Fund, we started with 25,000 euros in 2011, and we helped 2 people. And this is now an operation in which we work globally. Our leading international journalist in distress work in almost 100 countries worldwide, and we spend 2 million every year on this, funded by several donors. So the results and the proven impact then leads to additional funding. The other way around, and this is a bit true for Safer World for the Truth, we are highlighting that it's possible to investigate journalist killing. We are now appealing to the multinational levels to create a standing investigation force. But we are in fact looking for funders to help us continue this work. We have a fantastic team of 4 investigators. It's not, it's not a $1 million operation. It's 4 people who do work and work with local civil society actors to bring cases in areas up to the forefront. And so we'd be very happy if donors who are interested in that work connect with us. We are talking to some American donors, and they're interested, but we're still in the stage where we try to perpetuate our success and build on it. So the way I see, and this may seem very strange, but it goes back to our relationship with the Postcode Lottery, to come from experiments to proven concepts to a large program that is vital for the assistance is about 3 to 5 years. And this brings back the idea of why it's so important to have a long-term association with people that trust you. Because the reality, I know that everybody wants change to happen in a year. It doesn't work that way. The world is complex. The problems we're facing are complex. And we need time to develop from a building block to a big program. So in the Safer World, we are now in the stage where we have a proof of concept, and we're now trying to find additional donors to continue the work. We're still funded for half a year, so we hope to find additional donors soon.
Excellent. And want to call attention to a terrific question from Allende Merrill in the chat. Can you comment in further detail about the public function of journalism? You spoke to this a bit, but what should it be and what does it look like, and how does that help build trust with the public, I suppose?
Well, I think there are several ways. It's a topic about which I can talk for 3 days, so I'll try to be and Lidewij.
Yes.
So
we'll get the 6-minute version.
Sure,
That's how much time we have left.
I'm not sure of the best person. It's complicated, but I think that if journalists are transparent about the way in which they gather information and disseminate them, and how they protect the sources that they have, the likelihood of them being publicly trusted is very high. In other words, it's the ethics of the journalists themselves that help create public trust. But there's something more to that. That is also, there's a lot of journalism that is focusing on this politician is bad, or that politician is bad, or that politician is bad, pointing fingers journalism. It has a function in the current debate culture, but from the perspective, I'm a journalist myself, I always thought we need to address root causes of what is wrong in society. And so we need to focus on public interest issue. How do we ensure everybody has access to clean water? Those are issues that are not necessarily important for saying, oh, this minister is really doing a bad job today. But it is the thing that haunts people. And I have a very good example. We started working in Indonesia on an investigation into fishermen. Indonesia is an archipelago. We had a fantastic investigation team in Tempo. They were focusing on corruption of ministers, policemen in Jakarta. And we said to them, the public needs you to use your skills to see what is happening with fishermen, because all of it, the poor people in Indonesia are dependent on fishing, and most of them are working on fishing vessels. And their investigation, which we funded to try and get them away from this idea about corruption in high government circles, they started investigating how fishermen in Indonesia are treated on Korean, Japanese, fishing vessels, and they found that people are being locked up, they're being underpaid, they're being, many of them have injuries at work. There's no health coverage funding. This story not only appealed to the public, it was read and spread in over 100 media all over Indonesia. Demonstrations started in many towns. The government then decided to renegotiate the deal that they had with Korea about how the human rights of fishermen are being protected on these fishing vessels. This kind of journalism, this kind of public accountability of issues that are really super relevant to the public from a public interest perspective, those are the stories that we would like to see much more on climate, much more on where do I get my energy now that the prices for energy are surging. Those kind of questions that appeal to a large audience. I hope that answers your question, but it's about targeted investigations into the root causes of issues that matter to many people, not just about the minister and how we can send him or her away.
Really, yeah, I totally agree. Really, it's a solutions approach, not just pointing out what's wrong, but how we can address it and make it problem. And I know we have colleagues from Solutions Journalism Network here as well, so they can speak much more to that. And so we just have a couple minutes left. And so, Judith, I want to give you the closing word. If there's any takeaways or lessons you think from the Postcode Lottery's work and the relationship with Free Press Unlimited, if there's anything you'd recommend to folks, or just your top line takeaway.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not really aware of who's listening because I haven't seen who's on the call, but yeah, when it comes to our operation, we are here to stay. We would like to expand. We will for sure work together with Free Press Unlimited and all the other amazing partners, and we think the world needs organizations like that. And I think that also goes for the audience. And again, I can only offer again, if you come across donors who doubt to fund, first of all, media, press freedom, etc., or do it in an unrestricted and trust-based way, always happy to refer to me, and I will plea for the case. So if that happens, reach out to me. I know, Joseph, you have my contact details.
Yes, we are happy to share that, and we'll share all the links we shared in the chat and a recording of this, as well as the videos we shared at the beginning, so everyone can learn more and continue to think about these important issues and questions. But thank you very much to our panelists. This was a fascinating discussion and really could have continued all day. So thank you for staying late with us. I know it's getting to be after hours for you, but for everyone else, if you hope you'll stick around for our next sessions, which begin in about 30 minutes at the bottom of the hour, about a workshop on transforming small dollar donors into large dollar donors, and also the power of public funding. We'll hear from folks across the United States who are engaging local government to support their work. So that's it for now. Thank you all for being here, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.